record. So this evening we're looking at the fundamentals of networking, and we'll be looking at the common network protocols. Of course, we did look at this yesterday, and it was an interesting class. Personally, I did have a wonderful time, and but we didn't have the recording, and I want us to have the recording so that those who couldn't make it to class could eventually go through it, understand how to configure and how to set everything up. So once you can see my screen, please let me know. I want to share my screen now. So once you can see my screen, let me know, please. Can you see my screen, please? Hello?
Yeah, hello, sir. It's not feasible yet.
It's not visible. Okay.
I can see it now. I can see it
You
now.
can see it. Okay, fantastic.
Networking is the solution, fundamentals of networking, common. Yes, I can see it.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we'll be looking at common network protocols, HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, DNS, DHCP, and SNMP. So in today's class, we will have an overview of some of the most common network protocols used in modern networking. Used in modern networking, including HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, DNS, DHCP, and SNMP. For those of us that have been in the previous classes we've had, we've configured DNS server, we've configured DHCP server, and we will still have a revision of this. But tonight, we are going to be looking at HTTP configuration, HTTPS configuration, and FTP configuration. We will also explain how these protocols work together within a network. So, what is HTTP or HTTPS? Hypertext Hypertext Transfer Protocol, secured. So HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and HTTPS is Hypertext Transfer Protocol secure. That is, the secured is saying that there is a layer of security that is added, a layer of security that is added to HTTP. Just like when we said network, and or we say security. So now network administration, we could have cyber security. Now I understand network, but when I'm adding security to it, now we can begin to talk about cyber security. So HTTP is a protocol used for transmitting hypertext requests and information on the internet. It is used for transmitting hypertext requests and information on the internet. So we said it is the foundation of data communication for the World Wide Web. World Wide Web, allowing web browser and server to communicate. While we were explaining this, we said, okay, when we type google.com or we type any URL on our web browser, there is a server that is sitting somewhere. And through DNS, this URL or the domain name that we type on our web browser is transmitted to an IP or is translated to an IP sitting on the server in the cloud. So this hypertext is what allows the web browsers to communicate with the web servers. So when we are saying web browser, we are talking about your Google Chrome, you are talking about your Internet Explorer, your Safari in your Mac, and so on. So these web browsers communicate with the web server through HTTP. And so the secured version is the HTTPS is the secured version of HTTP. It uses encryption protocols like SSL, TLS to secure the data transmitted between the client and the server, ensuring that sensitive information remains confidential. So that is what happens. HTTPS ensures that the communication between the web browser and the web server is secured. So now when we are saying encryption, so there's going to be a key that can only be opened by a lock that can only be opened by the receiver. So decryption and encryption. So it's going to be encrypted at the client side, and then in the server place it could be now decrypted. So the communication between the web browser and the web server is secured. That is the major difference between HTTP and HTTPS. So the network design on the next slide helps us to understand how HTTP works on a network. So we built this infrastructure yesterday and we are going to replicate that in a few minutes. So what do? We have 3 PCs and I design it in such a way that it can be easier for us. 192.168.30.11, 30.12, and 30.13 are all connected to port 11, port 12, and port 13. So I bring up my packet tracer, Cisco packet tracer. I have 3 PCs. So we bring up those PCs. And for ease, all I need to do is 192.168.30.11. Let me call this one PC1. So we name this PC1 or user1. Let's call it user1. So, and 192.168.30.12, we call this user 2. So let me copy it and then I edit this user 3 and the IP is .13. So we are working with the 192.168.30.0 network and we have a switch. We have a switch that we use to connect these 3 devices together. So, and .11 is connecting to port 11 for easy identification. PC2 or user 2 is connecting to port 12 and user 3 is connecting to port 13. Then we pick our server. On our server, we also connect it to, say, port 10. Let's have our server connect to port 10. So let's configure our IP. Very easy. We go through that. Static IP. The first PC is .11. 255.255.255.0. We don't give any gateway here because we don't have a router yet on the infrastructure. Then PC2, we give it .12 and the subnet mask 255.255.255.0. No gateway yet. and PC 13.13/24. Now, we want to configure our HTTP server. So the first thing is for us to give it an IP. So we can give it in the range of 1 to, or let's ensure that we block from 200 to 254. So we give it .200, 30.200 or 201. So this is our HTTP server. We could still use what we have on our topology .50. As a matter of fact, I want you to use what we have on our topology for your assignment. So we've configured the IP. We can give it a name. Instead of having server 0, we can call it HTTP server. So we can see that it has changed to HTTP server here. And here we can call this our LAN switch. Good. So now let's configure the HTTP. So we go under services. Under services, we see the HTTP here. We ensure it is on. If it's off, we turn it on, both HTTP and HTTPS. So now you edit the index.html. Now, before we do the editing, let's go and see what is happening on our PC. Because the PC is on the same network with the web browser, if I ping 192.168.30.201, it should respond. So our web server, our PC is talking to the web server. But what we want to do is to be able to reach the web server. So let's go to the web browser of our PC1 now. So this is PC1. The web browser is 192.168.30.201. So we can see it's telling us that what Cisco Packet Tracer, and it says welcome to Cisco Packet Tracer, opening doors to new opportunities. This is the default web page. Let's go and edit it now for our own design. So here I can change the welcome to Cisco Packet Tracer, opening doors to new opportunity, to whatever I desire. So I will say welcome to the HTTP server designed for Network King's IT solution. So we save this. Yes, it should overwrite. So if I come back to the PC and do go now, you see it has said welcome to the HTTP server designed for Network King's IT solution. Now, I want to change this Cisco Packet Tracer to something else. You can see here, welcome to the HTTP server designed for Network King's IT solution. Now, I want to change this to something else, and maybe I should just make it. So up here, we can see Cisco Packet Tracer. I will call it Network King's IT solution. I can even choose to change the color from blue to green. Then save. If I save it again, yes, it should overwrite what is currently there. And then I go again. You can see Network Kings IT solution. And welcome to HTTP server designed for Network Kings IT solution. So this is all we need to do for our HTTP server, and it's up and running. The second protocol we are looking at tonight is the FTP server, file transfer protocol. This is very important in today's vast IT technology. Why is it important? Because there is need for you to have backups. Sometimes they want to ask you, what do you understand or what do you need FTP server for? It is used for transferring file. It is used for downloading. It is used for uploading. So these are the things that it does for us. So FTP is a standard network protocol used to transfer files between a client and a server over a TCP-based network, such as the internet. FTP allows users to upload, download, and manage files on a remote server. So we're saying that this remote server could be in your local area network, or it could be in a location you don't even have physical connection to. It could be over the internet. It could be an extranet, but there is a server somewhere that you have access to via TCP or an IP network. FTP can operate in active and passive mode, determining how the data connection is established. I'm going to share this PowerPoint with us so you'll be able to go through it. So I try to break this down again further today. So in Cisco Packet Tracer, we can simulate FTP server configuration to practice networking concept. So the first thing is to add a server to the network. So we already have a network whereby we've configured our HTTP server. Now we want to introduce FTP server so that we can do backups. We can upload and download files from the FTP server. So we configure the server IP address, enable the FTP server, set up FTP users and password. So we go back to our design here. So in this design now, I am going to introduce a router. Why am I introducing a router? Because we want to assume that the FTP server is sitting over the internet. So let's pick a Cisco router. Let's use 2900 series. So we call this our LAN router. LAN router. So we have the server again, but this time around, this server is going to be our FTP server. So we connect gigabit 00 to fast Ethernet 1 of the switch and gigabit or fast Ethernet 0 to gigabit 0/1 of the router. So we are going to have a /30 subnet 10.10.20.0/30. So this IP dot one will be sitting. Somebody is asking a question. Okay. So dot one we sit on the router, and dot two we sit on our FTP server. So dot two is on the FTP server, dot one is on the router. Meanwhile, we need to configure an IP in our LAN range 192.168.30.1. That's going to be the IP of our router on this interface. So the interface connecting to the LAN subnet is .1, which is going to be the default gateway for all our PCs, even including the HTTP server, if we are to configure that. So let's quickly configure our router so that the router can communicate with the website, the FTP server, and also communicate with the LAN. So no. Enable. We know that G0/1, let's reconfirm that G0/0 is what is connecting to our LAN. So let's give it a host name. Host name, we call it the LAN router. So interface gigabit G0/0 IP address 192.168.30.1 255.255.255.0 is a /24. No short. Immediately we bring up this interface, it should be green. And the other port on the switch is going through port forwarding, listening, and before it can start forwarding traffic. So if I do show IP interface brief, we will see the IP of the router that connects to the LAN. This router now should be able to ping one of the PCs if everything is working fine. 30.11, we have 30.11, which is the PC of user 1. So we can see success rate. The first success rate was 30% going through the up, but now we can have 100%. So the PC can reach the router and the router can reach the PC. However, we are yet to configure the interface connecting to the FTP server. So let's configure that interface. Interface gigabit 0/1 IP address 10.10.20.1 255.255.255.252. Please note this is a /30 subnet, so no short. Now we can see that the interface is up now. Show IP interface brief. Now, if we say we should ping the web server 10.10.20.2, it should not respond because there is no any IP on the web server yet. We are yet to configure our web server. Oh, sorry, our FTP server, So let's go and configure the FTP server now with an IP address first. So we look at our design. We've given it a name. So if we go to desktop, the IP we want to give this FTP server is 10.10.20.2, and the subnet mask is /30, so 255.255.255.252, and the gateway is the IP of the router. Anytime we are talking about gateway, most time it's always the IP of our router. So this is the IP. Now, if we go back to the router and try to ping again, it should go. So we see now it's responding. So we can ping the FTP server now from the router. Now, we are yet to configure the FTP service on that FTP server. So let's configure the FTP service. What do we need to do? We go to services and we will see FTP here. So under FTP, we can see it's off and it's on. So I can put it on here, and I need to create a username and a password. So let me call the username FTP user, and the password, let's say Cisco at 55. Then give it a write, read, delete, rename, and list administrative permission. So I add that user because this is the user. We have to configure this user even on our router. So Now the service is configured. We are good to go under the FTP server. So now let's configure the FTP user on the router. So IP FTP user name, we call it FTP user. Then IP FTP password Cisco at 55. So we've gotten that up and running. So the next thing we could do now is to go to our PC. On this PC, let's try to create a document. Now, this is a test file. When we open this test file, we only have a sample file here. And that sample file, if you open it, it says this is a sample test file. Good. So let's create a new file. This is an FTP server test file. So we can save this. We call it ftp.txt. So I do OK. Now I want to push this file to the FTP server. But then let's check if we can connect to the FTP server here. The first thing is for us to ping the FTP server 10.10.20.2. Is it possible? No. Why? This PC does not have a default gateway at the moment. Remember when we started our configuration, there is no default gateway on this PC. So the only thing it can reach is the router. It can't reach anything outside of the router. If I ping 192.168.30.1, it will respond. It can only reach the interface, this interface of the router. It can't reach the other two interfaces. But if we close this and come and give it a default gateway now, give it the 192.168.30.1, then we will see our pings will start working. So now, if I go back and try to ping, you see 20.1, which is the second interface of the router, is responding. Then 20.2, which is the FTP server, is also responding. So we can reach the FTP server. It means we should be able to connect to this FTP server using the username and the password that we created on it. So how do I do that? FTP, then the IP FTP 10.10.20.2. So now it has come. Welcome to PT FTP server. What is the username? FTP user. And the password Cisco at 55. Now we are inside the server. We are inside our FTP server. Now, if I do question mark, it will show me all the commands that we have. So if I want to check what are the documents or the directory, the things that are inside this FTP server, I do dir directory. That is a command from Linux, actually, from a Linux perspective. So we can see all the different files that are inside this server. We did not see anything that is relating to ftp.txt here at the moment. But then if I log out of this FTP server, we can use the command quit. We are back into our PC. If I do there, we can see that this is the ftp.txt on the Windows PC here. So I want to move this ftp.txt now to the server so I can upload it there. So let's go back and enter the FTP server again. So username FTP user and password Cisco at. Okay, so we are in now. How do I get that? To push or to upload server, we do put and then the file name, which is this ftp.txt. So ftp.txt. So you see now, it tells us that writing file ftp.txt to 10.10.20.2, which is putting the file into the FTP server. So if I do dir now, we can see the file is now on the FTP server. Meanwhile, initially when we did dir on the server, you see that the 0 was an Cisco ASA ISO image or file. So, but now we have the FTP file here. Now, peradventure, somehow, maybe this is your personal laptop in the office. You got home, something happened, the laptop crashed. You can't access this laptop. You do not have access to that file again. You are now asked to go and use this PC when you go to the office. Now, for you to use this PC, we need to give it the default gateway as usual, so .1. Now you want to access the file. But what I want to do here is I want us to push our configuration file from this router. So this is actually the interesting part. So because we can do show run and see the current configuration on this router. So let's copy this current configuration. We can copy the current configuration, copy it, and save as a test. So new, and I paste it here. So this is our save as LAN router.txt. So we've saved the file here. If we come back and open, we have two files, LAN router.txt and sample.txt. Okay, so we want to upload this file to the FTP server. So we just connect to the FTP server. FTP, who can give me the IP of our FTP server here? Someone help me. Are we following this class?
10.10.0.20.0.
Okay, so it's 10.10.20.2. That is our FTP server. So we click enter. It asks for our username, FTP user,
Okay.
and the password is Cisco at 55. So we are inside the FTP. If we do directory, we only have the ftp.txt. We do not have anything like LAN router here. So we can go back to check what is the test file name. It is LAN router.txt. LAN router.txt. So we come back to this and then do. I said if we want to check, we can check with this command. So to upload a file, we say put then LAN-router.txt. We have pushed the file now into the, so we can see now LAN router.txt. Meanwhile, PC13 or PC3 192.168.30.1 does not have any file. The only file that is here, when we open it, is only the sample file. Now, I want to download the two files into this PC now. So, let's try that. Can we ping the FTP server 10.10.20.2? Yes, we can. Good. let's connect to the server. FTP 10.10.20.2 FTP user Cisco at 5. So it's up. Now, what are the files that we want to download? We want to download these two files. So instead of using the word put, now it's going to be get. We are trying to get the file. So we get the file name, copy, and paste. So you see, it has been transferred. So it's a reading file, landrouter.txt from. So let's get the second one, which is the ftp.txt. Copy, and we paste as well. So now both are there. So if I close this and come to the test file and open now, we see the two files are now here on the third user or the. So if we open this now, okay, we see the configuration. Our router configuration is here from the PC. Same way, we can push our config from the router to the FTP server. So for instance, we can do copy running config. And where do we want to copy it to? We want to copy it to FTP. So we say FTP. When we press enter, address or name of the remote server. What is the address of our remote server, which is the FTP server 10.10.20.2. Now, destination file name. So we call it LAN router config. So you can see, it says writing running config. We can see writing running config, and then everything has been sent. So let's check if we have that. Can we see that now? Is everybody here? Can you see now? You can see the LAN router running config. So the LAN router running config, our running configuration on our router has been pushed to the FTP server, and I can download it even to the PC. Now, if I exit this PC, we can see that, quit the FTP server, and you do die now, you can see that LAN router running config is not here at the moment. It's not here. It's not. So what we have here is just lanrouter.txt. So I want to copy it in so we can go back to log into the FTP server, username FTP user, and then password. Put your password. Now dir. So I can now say, what is the command to download a file from the FTP server? I need a response. What is the command? Put is to upload. What is the command to download?
Get.
Get. Thank you.
Get.
So get. Then we want to get the LAN router config. Copy, and we paste that. So now, if we go to this PC now and check the test editor, we will see the LAN router config. And if we do OK, it should open up or be able to give us access to it. But we have been able to push our config down there. The same thing we can do to this switch. Let's say we want to take the backup of this switch. So from this switch, host name, let's give it a host name of LAN switch. Host name LAN switch. So can the switch ping the FTP server 10.10.20.2? If yes, then it should be able to communicate with it. Okay. So the next thing is, can the switch ping? So we need to put a an IP on the switch so that it could be able to, we call it an SVI, so that it can have a communication link between the router and the network. So show IP interface brief. Config T, interface VLAN 1, no short. So we brought up our show IP interface brief. So let's try the ping again, 10.10.20.1. So we've brought up our VLAN. So let's give an IP in the range of our config T interface VLAN 1 IP address 192.168.30.255.255.255.0, no short. So let's ping our default gateway again and see the possibility of getting, yes, we can reach the router now. So we can reach the router. Let's see if we can reach the web server or the HTTP server, because from the router, but we need to have a default gateway, because if we do not have a default gateway pointing out, telling where to route traffic to, IP default gateway, it should use the gateway of our router. That's the IP of our router. So now we can reach the FTP server. So what have we just done here? Show IP interface brief. We configured an IP on the VLAN. Remember, we are not configuring VLAN here. So we are not creating any VLAN. We are still using the default VLAN. And we did show run. And we gave it a default gateway so that it knows where to go to when it doesn't know how to go out. So it should route the traffic from its network to the router. So now, if the switch can ping the FTP server, that means the switch can also send its own configuration file to the FTP server. So that is what we want to do now. Do we have any question? If you have question, please, you can type it or you can ask. Any question, please? All right. So we have the old design working. Okay, so our switch is back up. Okay, so we want to copy the running config. Copy running config, startup config. That we are saving the file. It's saved. But now we want to save it to the FTP server. Copy running config and then save it to FTP server. And what's our FTP server? 10.10.20.2, and the file name is lan-switch-config.txt. So he said FTP username or password is not set, please set and try again. Remember, we set up FTP username and password on the router. So we say IP FTP username, we call it FTP user. Then IP FTP password, Cisco at 55. So we've done that. So let's go back and run our configuration again. 10.10.20.2, and then we call it LAN hyphen switch hyphen config.txt. So it has copied it now and send it. So let's go and check from our PC if we have such file now. So we are in the FTP server from the PC. So for those of us that are just coming in, how do I access the FTP server? I go to the command prompt, or let's use another PC entirely here. Let's use the third PC here. So on the command prompt, let's exit this or quit. So when we open our PC, we come to command prompt and ping the FTP server. Ping 10.10.20.2 is responding. So we should be able to connect to it with the username FTP 10.10.20.2. The username is FTP user and the password is Cisco at 55, and we are inside the. So if we do dial now, you will see that you can see the third or fourth file now is LAN switch config.txt. So I want to copy this now into this PC. So we said we use the command get and we pick the file so that it can be downloaded into this PC. Copy and paste. So it's already inside this PC. So if I quit now and check this PC, I should see the switch. You can see LAN switch config.txt. The same way, if I come to the text editor, I can open it and see the switch configuration here. So that is how we are able to take our backups. And we have successfully configured both HTTP server and FTP server. Do we have any question?
Sir, can I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Sir, I don't have any question, but regarding the HTTP server video, sir, please, I was not in class yesterday, and it wasn't on purpose, sir. Please, if there's a recording, please, I would like to.
Yeah, we did.
That's the reason why we're having this class today.
We started everything from scratch today. So this is recorded, so you will have access to it.
Thank God. Thank you, sir.
Welcome,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Welcome.
All right, sir.
Look. Any other question, please? So the network we are using is 192.168.30.0/24. That is the network for the LAN. So I bring that here. All right. If there is no any other question, thank you everyone for coming to class tonight. Do have a wonderful evening. The video should be up on or before tomorrow morning.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Good night.
Night.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.